Okay, just a quick tutorial on building shapes and keeping the mirror plane intact on export to something like ZBrush. And what I'm going to try and do is do a quick breakdown of my workflow with a sculpt, and then show you how I deal with that and keep the mirror plane intact, and then export that to ZBrush, and I'll show you in ZBrush how I work with it in there. But in this sense, I want to show you just a quick layout of a shape and design, keeping that intact in the mirror plane, talking a little bit about some of the translate and rotate options that are in Medium. They're a little bit confusing, but hopefully you can get a grasp on how it all works, right? So build another shape. Built a couple this morning. I've been doing some tests on designs. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, my design's quite simple. I usually just use the move tool to make a design quite quickly. Don't really like that. Maybe it's a bit better. And I rough out a design very fast in Medium, and I find that Medium is just amazing for freedom and creating designs efficiently and beautifully. I'll probably just keep it a little bit generic. I mean, I say generic in my sense, but I'll yeah, quick mess around, and I'll get onto the transform stuff in a sec. I think it's changed my perspective on organic shapes. Quite seriously, I think that Medium, I actually have trouble in other programs making organic shapes, whereas Medium is just like this. It's natural and easy to make organic shapes quickly. So my next tip is I push up the inner radius of the move tool. This is like a go-to way I play, and I up-res it about twice. And what I do with the move tool is I build surfaces from that based on kind of what the design is reading to me, and I find this really cool to build shapes out really fast and process the design in such a way to find it helps finding happy accidents and things like that. Helps shaping surfaces and finding something that you just wouldn't necessarily find in any other app. And I quite seriously say that I don't think there is any other app that allows you to be this free with designing a surface or contour based processing. So, and you know, you can pull surfaces out quite ruthlessly and build around that. Helps a lot with planning your surface and design, and also finding shapes that you otherwise would have trouble in other applications. I kind of liken it to extrusion, like extruding in Maya or extruding in ZBrush in such a way. So it helps also with planning. So like with Dynamesh and like building with clay tubes, things like that, you can really, you know, rough out a design quickly and you know, plan out what's going on. You know, really, it's the best way to put it. Try to steer clear of little floaters, you might say, floats, and rattled surfaces. They're not usually good, but you get them. I mean, it's a voxel based system. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that you'll see them when you export it to another program. Plus the interiors of objects as well. That'll all be there as well if the interior's not been filled. Yeah. So just do this quickly and then jump into transforms. Let's see. Okay. So you got yourself a design of such, which I'm happy with the look of that. I like this way this sweeps here. I like this cut and then break in here and then this internal point. Looks pretty good. I'll probably bring out the bow a bit more and balance it out. I like the back section here. This is working. And maybe bring some fins. It's got fin crazy, right? Cool. Okay, so you've got yourself a design, and then we're going to talk about the mirror plane now. And with the mirror plane, I usually work within the mirror plane zone when I build something, and I talk about that meaning that I look at the axis of the mirror plane. That the mirror plane is the y-axis, the z-axis, and the x-axis coming this way. With the transforms itself, the way Medium talks about that, and they talk about that it's actually opposite. I'm a Maya up user, so Y is usually up for me, and Z is usually in front, and X is usually side to side. So, I mean, to cut it all really, really quickly and short, what I usually do is just select the lathe, and then I select the X axis, and I zero that out. And then I select the lathe again, the options for lathe, and I center the sculpt. And what that gives me is a model in the center of the mirror plane. Basically, scale's not really important because it's really going to export the voxels out for what the export options are. So if it goes to File, Export, it's going to say to you, 100% at was that a mil, 1 million, one and a half. Something like that, right? So it doesn't really matter about what scale, as in like that. You have it. I mean, if it's nice and comfortable for you to see, then like that. So then my habit is basically that 0 center sculpt. That's where I go. That's the only thing I do to go to ZBrush, and all my models will always stay in the center of the mirror plane in ZBrush, and there's no issues. With your voxel square, so this SDF square, sign distance field, with this square here, based on your rotation of your model, so if you've started sculpting and this has been, if you've started sculpting like this and you're having trouble keeping the orientation of your model, so if we just make that happen, that's your orientation, and then you go to center your sculpt, then it's going to stay at that orientation. When you really want it like that, but it's going to start like that. So if I put it like that, I like this is cool, but then I go back to center the lathe, and then center the sculpt. It's going to go back like that, right? To change that, you can just zero out the x-axis rotation. Cool. So I can pretty much now go to save, and then save this out as quick 3, enter, save. Cool, and then go to export, just OBJ, vertex colors, quick 3, medium ref, export medium, export. Cool. Export succeeded. Now, I can just break here and I'll stop, and then I'll start another one, another second tutorial, which is a little bit more technical